What's going on, guys? Welcome to a brand new series of episode reviews. This is going to be series of episode reviews for one of the newer animes that's airing this season, which is Witch and the Beast. This is one of the other series that we were talking about doing aside from just doing solo leveling, because there's not really. It seems like there's not really a lot of big releases coming out this season, aside from this and solo leveling. Even though this was one of those anime that's not really like really hyped up or anything like that. Mostly because it's not like a big shonen title or anything like that. I mean, it's mostly like a seinen manga series, so it's not quite as well known. Although I would say like the manga, from what I've read, is in my opinion pretty underrated. So I was a little bit interested in this anime adaptation in particular. However, I was a little bit concerned because the studio doing it is a studio known as Yokohama Animation Lab, which I'm not really familiar with anything they've done before. So I looked into what they've done, and a lot of what they've done has been like slice of life series. They've done one series that's, I guess, kind of like this, called Kingdoms of Ruin, and a lot of people were pretty disappointed with it. So unfortunately, doesn't really bode too well. But I will say so far the first episode is at least mostly decent. I've heard some people complain about it, but as somebody who's read the manga, I was mostly fine with the way it was handled. I feel like it could have been handled a little bit better, but I mean, I think from what we have so far, it's mostly fine.
Yeah, the first episode, it vaguely tells us like what the world is about.
Yeah,
Of course, there's this mages association, and then that they're hunting witches and stuff. Well, for the first episode, we're immediately thrust into the first episode with the with the two main characters of the show. One is a petite young girl with a foul mouth named Guido, and her mage companion named Asaf.
yeah,
So we don't, for this episode, we don't get a lot of backstory or any origin for neither of these characters just yet. We're just like really just thrust into just early in their partnership of hunting witches.
yeah. Which I do kind of like about the story is that they keep things vague about the characters, both of the characters' backstories. It's probably something they'll reveal later on. But I like how they just kind of throw you into the middle of it. They don't really give you a lot about the world. I think it's something that's most likely going to be slowly revealed throughout the series. But as far as we know, like, yeah, we're just given basic information such as they're hunting witches, and that one of them is like a mage, and Yudo is somebody that has this mysterious ability to transform into this some kind of a creature that we see at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Um, I guess Guido's main objective is to hunt for a witch that ended up cursing her. Um, I could assume that her true form is her real form,
Yeah,
and then she's stuck as this petite, young looking woman, because like her overall personality, she's displayed as like short tempered, impulsive, and violent as well, and it doesn't really suit her, based on her appearance. I mean, obviously, which is revealed by the end of the episode, which shows off her true abilities and appearance wise. Um, so both Guido and Asaf go to the city. I think it was the city of Lotus, and they started investigating, asking about this witch in the city, who the townspeople revere as like the hero of the city due to her magical abilities. Um, so they managed to find this witch really quickly after they encounter like this giant, like Godzilla looking shark or something like this. It's hard to describe, but
it's basically a
soon after,
giant shark. Yeah, that's
yeah,
uh,
it's a giant shark with legs apparently. Um, so as soon as they try to confront that shark, this witch shows up and it just ends up taking it down. Um, and then of course they also encounter this woman who is also like, I guess she's like an apprentice or a friend to this witch.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
yeah, but before like Asaf can really do anything or ask her about the witch, Gito just immediately just attacks this witch out of nowhere, and of course, the witch of course defends herself and immediately subdues her. Um, and then of course soon afterwards, the authorities try to arrest the two for trying to attack the witch. But of course, they end up escaping thanks to what was it? Asaf illusion or like he has this illusionary ability to summon like ravens around him or something.
Yeah, it's some kind of, I guess, teleportation ability.
Yeah. Um, and then throughout the entire episode, and we get hints that this witch that's being praised as a hero has some kind of ulterior motive, and Asaf, of course, investigates this and finds out that there's a history, you know, with not only just the witch but the city itself.
Yeah, apparently the city had been burned down. I think they said around like 400 years ago. Um, I think it was by a witch, and
Yeah,
yeah. So and um, but of course, it's not really much of a surprise. Of course, we find out that the witch, um, like you said, like she doesn't actually have ulterior motives, because we find out that apparently she's been like she invited, I forget what the reason was. She invited all these people over to her house, and she has this like this area in her house where basically all these people come, and she ends up like trapping them all in there, or like
yeah.
imprisoning them.
And it's pretty graphic too. Like,
Yeah.
not only are were most of them like stripped naked, but they're all like they all lose both their hands and their feet in the process.
Mhm.
Um, which is a little bit disturbing, but also like there's some weird censorship in this episode because
It is very strange how they decide to like censor certain parts of the body, although we can see their limbs being being cut off and stuff. um I'm guessing it's probably something that'll more than likely be uncensored maybe when the Blu-ray comes out, but I'm not sure. Because I think if I remember correctly, like in the manga, I believe they do show everything, but I could be misremembering that.
yeah, it's just a weird way they kind of presented it in this manner, but yeah, it's just the young girl who's a friend to this witch asks like why she's doing this, and of course, as we know, like the witch is of course has the relation to like I think her great grandmother or something like that, being responsible for the fire burning the city. So she uses the bodies of the dead women. She uses as sacrifices to pretty much like start burning down the entire city again.
Yeah. Some people have pointed out how ridiculous this is, just because this is something that happened 400 years ago, and nobody would really have been alive that had that had killed, or that had killed or tortured her grandmother that long ago. They would mostly just be descent, or maybe distant relatives or descendants of those people, if anything. Um, but yeah, she's basically just trying to burn the city down as revenge, just for what happened.
Yeah, and of course, so we get Asaf and Guido charging in, trying to stop her. Of course, Guido tries to take it upon herself, just just basically just trying to use brute force to take her down. But of course, she once again she gets subdued.
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, she actually no, she first asks like whether or not if she's the witch that ended up cursing her, and of course, the witch and confirms that she's not the one who cursed her, but it has to be it has to be the actual witch that ended up cursing her to to be removed.
Yeah, we see
Um,
there's apparently some kind of a mark on her neck, I guess, that signifies the curse.
mhm. Yeah, but of course, all of a sudden, Guido ends up kissing the witch, which enables her to
Well,
temporarily remove the curse, and then
yeah, so we did
and
find out like earlier on in the episode too that I think that Asaf mentioned that there is a few ways for to remove a witch's curse, and that one of them is to receive a kiss from Prince Charming, or something like that, something from a fairy tale basically. Um, or I think, and then we find out I think one of the ways was to actually directly like hiss the witch themselves. Um, so I guess that's a way for Guido to confirm whether or not that she was the witch that cursed her.
Yeah, so she does end up kissing her, and then this enables her to temporarily uh, subdue the curse that's inflicted upon her, which allows her to transform into her true form, which is like this giant, almost just like this giant golem-looking beast thing. Hence the name, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so immediately just wails on this witch, and then just immediately easily just takes her down. I mean, she doesn't kill her, but of course, like she's left incapacitated for enough for both Guido and Asaf to apprehend her for the Mages Association or whatever this association he works for.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I, what did you think about the fight scene in general? Like, I thought from what we saw of it, I thought it looked fine for the most part. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything amazing, but I thought it looked decent for what it was, I guess. Um,
It was.
yeah,
I noticed there were some like there was some like choppy animation during the fight, or
yeah,
there's some like smoother looking animation or walking animation uh what was it, for Guido in particular. It's really hard to really explain, but I mean it looked fine, from what I can tell. But yeah, it's just but yeah, but the overall like presentation, it's you mentioned earlier that that the lighting kind of gets a little bit too bright at times
mhm. Well,
during
that was
during
one
some
of the.
segments.
I guess that was one of the complaints I was hearing from people was that they thought the color palette was too bright for the kind of series that it is. I guess, which is supposed to be a dark fantasy series, and um, they're just kind of treating it, I guess, like it's a almost like one of the slice of life series they work on in terms of the approach to the color palette.
Yeah. But anyway, so after they take down this witch, they end up rescuing the rest of the girls, and somehow, um, I guess Asaf manages to regenerate all the women's limbs back together
Yeah.
somehow. Um, so then, like soon after that, both Asaf and Guido end up going back. I guess like they take a trip back to their headquarters soon afterwards, and that's basically the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty good hook for just the first episode of the series, and with the manga, that was kind of that was like one of the first chapters of it. So it's a good way to kind of draw people in, just with this premise of this woman this person that I guess their monster was cursed by a witch, and they're trying to remove the curse, and the setting itself is also pretty interesting, just being like a steampunk kind of setting as well. Um, but yeah, it's I mean, it's definitely an interesting series. I'm just like I said before, I'm just concerned as to how Yokohama Animation Lab is going to approach the series, especially also considering apparently the director of the series as well hasn't really done a dark fantasy series before either. So that also kind of has me a little bit, just a little bit apprehensive about how this is going to be handled. But it was a decent first episode at least. I mean, there are some nitpicks I could make, but aside from that, I thought it was mostly fine. Um, but I guess we'll just have to see, how they handle other aspects of the plot and characters as the series progresses. It's going to be, I think, 12 episodes. So I guess we'll see how the director approaches some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a decent episode.
Yeah.
Um, it's just yeah. I mean, I could assume by the next episode we'll get like an actual origin story for both these characters and how they met, or how like Guido in particular ended up getting cursed in the first place.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, my main concern is like if it'll suffer the same fate as like Kingdoms of Ruins did, because that show, which just ended recently, kind of ended off on like in a weird point, and of course the story just ends inconclusively,
Yeah.
which makes me a little bit concerned like how they're going to handle this storyline, whether like we'll just mainly see like just standalone like adventures with these two, and then like they'll end the show without really resolving anything or of something.
Having read the manga, I will say that the story is kind of like that. There might be like an overarching plot that happens later on, but there some of it is just them kind of going and like kind of facing different witches or just kind of doing different things. They're kind of standalone in a way, but it also sort of develops the characters a little bit. Um, so yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to like what point they're going to end it at if they're doing 12 episodes, because the manga is still ongoing. So yeah, I am curious as to how they're going to end this season. But I guess we'll just have to see though. I don't really have too much else to say about it. However, I'm trying to give it a chance. So far it's not bad or anything. I think it's actually okay for the fact that this is like a not really I guess a big name animation studio, and the director has not really done anything like this before. I think they're doing a fairly decent job for like I said, for the kind of studio it is. I would have preferred if it was like more big name animation studio doing it, because I really do feel like the manga deserves that. It's just the issue is that the manga, I feel like, is just not that well known, and that might be why they kind of maybe had to settle for this studio doing the adaptation, I guess.
Yeah, and not to mention that there's not a lot of marketing for this show
Yeah,
compared to how Solo Leveling got like a
it,
lot of marketing for this
yeah,
season in
it's not
particular.
getting near the amount of like attention or anything like that as opposed to a series like Solo Leveling. That one's definitely been way more hyped up than like Witch and the Beast. Uh, Witch and the Beast is something that people will probably just stumble across and get introduced to, and as opposed to just having it advertised to them like with Solo Leveling, unfortunately, which really sucks because it is a good series. But yeah, I like I said, I don't really have too much else to say though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
I thought it was a decent start for this show.
Yeah.
My hope is like it'll remain a little bit more consistent than what than Kingdoms of Ruins did. I mean, the show did have like a good first half until it kind of fell off a cliff by the second half. So I'm just hoping it doesn't the show doesn't really suffer the same fate.
Yeah, I feel like if it can remain like consistent, like in terms of the quality, like with the first episode, if it can just remain consistent with that, it should be fine. The only issue is if, like you said, yeah, it just kind of drops off a cliff or something, and it just becomes just really just kind of messy in terms of animation quality or just the way they're adapting it, I feel like any number of things could go wrong. But from what I've seen from episode one, I'm fairly optimistic. I've seen much worse. So I guess it's not the highest praise, but I think it's when we're talking about like I guess not a big name animation studio, that I feel like that's the best thing you can probably say, especially considering the manga is as detailed as it is, and but I mean I'll take what I can get, I guess. But yeah, guys, that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.